Nella botte piccola c'è il vino buono, we say in Italian, which you could translate with something like good things come in small packages. Let's see if this applies to this tiny pu'er cake. Hi guys, this is Gabriele from nannuoshan, where we share the pleasure of drinking and discovering genuine farm tea. If you're also looking to expand your tea knowledge and brewing skills, make sure to click on the subscribe button and don't forget to give us a thumbs up if you enjoy watching this video. Today we speak about pu'er once again, about one specific pu'er, this one here, and as you see is a very tiny bean cha pu'er cake. I will start giving you some information about this cake and then I will deep into the tasting. I haven't yet tasted this cake, and I mean, if you are a tea drinker, you know what I mean. The first time that you drink tea, you don't know exactly what to expect, so it's kind of a special moment. I'm not used to drink so late in the process our tea, but because of COVID, I'm not able to travel to China myself, so I find myself actually not tasting the tea on the tea fields by the tea farmers or in the tea factories in this case, but later here back at home. So what is all about this tiny cake? First of all, let's start maybe with the name of the tea. It is called Dao Cha Xiang, which means something like ancient road, or yeah, I would say ancient road. Cha Xiang means tea township, so it is the ancient road tea township. It's a kind of tribute to the ancient horse tea road back at the days. And it is actually a tea from 2007, so it is almost 15 years old, so medium aging about this tea, and it has been stored very dry, very substantially dry, I would say, not extremely so, in Zhengzhou. So definitely not a wet storage. Now, the cake itself is about 100 grams, and we sell it for 30 euros, but this cake actually comes in a box with other 7 of them, so 8 cakes in a box, in a cardboard box with an octagonal section. So a bit unusual that they actually have chosen 8 cakes instead of 7, that is more classy, but maybe because of the shape, because it is 8, it has 8 sides, it's an octagonal shape, maybe they have gone for 8 cakes, who knows. Anyway, if you really are into the tea and you've tried, I suggest always trying it in smaller quantities. You can even buy a whole box, and it would cost I think about 192 euros, so you would save quite some money in the single cake. But let's speak about who made this cake, where it comes from, a little bit of history behind that, and maybe in the meantime I turn on the water so that I get ready for the tasting. So the cake is made by a tea company that is called Dian Hong Group. Now, for those of you that have already heard the term, Dian Hong in Chinese means Yunnan red, so it actually is a name of a very famous black tea, not a pu'er tea. So this might be a little bit misleading, and in fact we have a factory that have a name of a black tea that actually also produce pu'er. How that comes all about? So we have to go a little bit back into last century. At the end of the 30s, of the 1930s, you have to know that, well, probably you know that the east of China was invaded and occupied by the Japanese. So the Chinese didn't have any more access to the coast, and also the trade was affected because they had no access to the harbors. So what happened is that they had to find new way to trade with the West, and one of the trade goods at that time was of course tea. So they said in Yunnan there is tons of place, there is already good tea, but there is not really good black tea, and black tea is very important for export. So what about if we start producing black tea in Yunnan? And that's what they did. They sent over some tea experts. They found a different experimental development center, and in 1939 they founded a company in Fengqing, which is in the Linzan prefecture, kind of halfway between Linzan capital and Dali. And in the Fengqing they founded the Shunning experimental tea factory. Shunning because at that time the Linzan prefecture was called in this way. In this factory, it is said that the Dian Hong black tea was invented. Now it's kind of disputed. There are also different stories. Everything is back in history, and with the communists that came afterwards, it is very, very difficult to find data actually about those times. But as a matter of fact, it was a place where black tea was invented. But the region was also very good for pu'er, of course. And so they produced also pu'er. The company was renamed in 1954, was renamed in Fengqing Tea Factory, because the factory was in Fengqing, and even nowadays it go along with that name, and the Dian Hong Group still bring that Fengqing Tea Factory brand along with. And the factory was actually renamed finally into Dian Hong Group only in 1996. So now you know the story of this cake, of this factory, almost 100 years old tea factory. So I would say a classic if you want. And let's look at the cake. So here we are, as we say, the tiny cake. Let's look at the leaves. And you know what? I will just start drinking it. I gave you a lot of information now, but I really wanted to give you all the information at the beginning so that now I can really concentrate on the taste, and I will stop speaking so much. So I'm sure some of you will enjoy it better, as I tend to speak quite a lot. It is in our genes in Italian. In Italy we speak really a lot. When I moved to Germany and then to Switzerland, now to the US, well, the US also they speak a lot, but certainly in Switzerland and in Germany, I really noticed that people tend to speak much less, and often is good that they speak less. But I certainly have hard time in not speaking much. Okay, let me make some room here. Okay, so some people like to break the cake through and taking a little bit from the center, a little bit from the side. I personally don't do that much. I tend to break it in this way so that I take something from the exterior, something from the center, but not necessarily at the same time from both sides. Unless I break the cake into two halves, then in that case I would tend to take from both sides. But otherwise I keep my cake whole and I go along just breaking a little bit from one side, a little bit from the other. And let's see how it comes. So it's fairly dark already. It has been aged, as said, for the complete time, since it was produced in Zhengzhou, which has a good seasonal temperature, climate variation. I'm making here about 6 grams of leaves. It's quite tightly pressed. And I not always wait the tea, but since it is the first time that I drink it, I kind of like to be a bit more precise, so that I have a reference. I know this teapot, I know that I use it often with about this quantity of leaf. So yeah. Yeah, and here we have, they write, in fact, on the wrapper, they write Yunnan Dian Hong Group, and then Fengqing Tea Factory. So they point out that is a production from the Fengqing Tea Factory. Also because I'm pretty sure that nowadays they have more factories. They don't have only this one that was the first one, but they have more than that. And I'm also want to see now if the taste of this tea is actually close to what I would expect from a Fengqing production. Let's see. My water is at 94 degrees centigrade. I warm it a tiny bit more. And if you have this cake at home, you can just drink along with me, or something similar, you know, 15 years of age, dry storage. In this case from Linzang, so if you have a cake from Linzang, even better, so that you can have maybe a similar taste profile, because Fengqing is pretty much up in the north, so it's extremely unlikely that these leaves came from elsewhere. They might come actually from that very region. Okay, I will give it a good rinse. The end is 15 years old. And yeah, I don't do it always, but today I want to use a filter, so that I tend to broke it a little bit when I broke the cake in small pieces, so I want that those stay out, as you can see here. And by the way, this one is a new filter that we have at nannuoshan. Actually, we managed even to get our tiny guy one in here, and it is actually a real leaf, this one, so it's not fake. It's really a real leaf that is processed in a way that all the structure remain and you can use it. You cannot use it forever, and in fact many of you have asked how long does this leaf actually resist until it fall apart. I can tell you, I have this leaf for several months already, and if you pay attention, you can use certainly it for several months before it breaks. I didn't manage to break one yet. Okay, let's smell the wet leaves. Quite an intense taste. It is a little bit smoky, but it's not smoke. It reminds me actually greater tobacco. It reminds me when my my grandfather was smoking a lot, many cigarettes, not at the end of his life, but when he was a bit younger. And I remember when my grandmother was actually preparing cigarettes for him, and the kitchen was smelling like that. She was taking the tobacco and she had a small machine to press it into the paper. Yeah. Certainly tobacco there. Actually, one of the most clear sign of tobacco I had in tea. It's very, it's not, it's really the first thing that I smell in there is this tobacco taste. Shall we do? Well, it's still a little bit broken, so I'll wait a tiny bit before steeping and pouring it out. Almost forgotten. The memory of the camera got full while I was pouring the first steep, and I continued actually without realizing that the recording was stopped. So this is actually already the third steep, but luckily enough the second one was very consistent with the second. So what happened? What have you lost? The first steep, although it wasn't that long, was very, very intense and strong, overwhelming, very, very powerful, much more than I was expecting from a Linzang tea. So I did the second and the third steep. much shorter. Just, you know, flash brewing them, water in, water out. And this is my third tip. And it is much, I will warm up the water for a fourth one. It is much more smooth and actually pleasant, I would say. The first one was really too powerful, and in this one you still have those notes that I actually already discovered during the first tip that you have missed. But you know, there is no second time for doing a first tasting of a pu'er. And you have these tobacco notes that are very present. There is also some note of more in the smell than in the taste of incenso, we say in Italian. That is, I don't know how to say that in English. I will write a translation on the screen. It is actually the kind of smell that you have sometimes in churches. And then it has a very pleasant herbal note. So it is somewhat herbal with tobacco. It's not really bitter at all. Maybe just a tiny bit at the first when you steep it, and then yeah, it is a tiny bit bitter at the very beginning, but then it all dissolves into what I would call maybe a kind of spicy sweetness. Is sweet but is spicy at the same time. I don't know if it makes sense to you, but I will down another 4 brew fresh to see. This was already cooling a little bit down to see actually be able to describe the tea, you know, freshly brewed. It is at 90 degrees centigrade, so I'm almost there. Before I describe to you this filter, but let's see, what else do I have on my table here? Some of you ask actually what I'm using for brewing. You recognize some of the items because they are on the nannuoshan shop, some other are not. Sometimes you guys send me an email and say, can I have that piece? It's not always possible. But here we have this teapot. Is my favorite teapot, Asian teapot overall, my Sheng Pu'er teapot. We had other 2 that we sold already, and it was not possible to source them anymore, simply because the clay is no more there. The artist has finished this clay. She still produces this teapot, but with another material. This picture actually is, I have only one, and I bought it because I wanted to look if I would like to buy for the nannuoshan shop, but there is one aspect that I don't like of it, a very tiny one that I will show you soon, and so I ended up not buying it for nannuoshan, but I kept this one for myself. It's very large, and so it is convenient for large teapots, even much larger than this one actually. And the thing that I don't like very much is that there is a tiny symbol here on the back that I don't know, I don't like that, so I didn't buy for nannuoshan. This one is a cup from made by Ryan, one of the most emerging artists in Jindegen. And if you're following us, you know that we have recently received a very large shipment from China, the largest ever actually for nannuoshan in a single sourcing. And we managed to order by Ryan a few of these cups also for the shop. Not many. We will put them online. If you're interested and you want to reserve some, just drop us an email, info@nannuoshan.org. I say there are not many, and it will kind of pricey, I tell you already, because first of all, it's very precious material, like the dots that you see on the cup is actually gold. It's like actually stars in the sky. And it's all handmade, so it's pretty pricey, but since many of you like that, we asked Ryan if you could do some more for you. And yeah, pu'er needle, we will have some new pu'er needle, not this one, but something similar and a little bit a wider one. And this is actually a waste container that has nothing to do with tea. I found it in Slovenia at an artist in, just I was walking and I found it, I like it, and I find it a good use for it. Very consistent. You can brew this tea forever. It's like, with this very quick flash brewing, it's still so harmonious. It's very powerful, but nonetheless it's very harmonious in itself. It's not kind of oversteeped, because I brew it so slow, and I really suggest you to do so, just flash brewing it, unless you really want the strength. But it is full-bodied, very intense, with this very clear tobacco herbal note. In fact, actually, if I would describe this tea, I would say this is a Sheng Pu'er for lovers of herbal tobacco Shengs. So if you're really searching for a clean tobacco and herbs taste, you will find this in here. And actually the herbal aspect doesn't come with a surprise, because tea from Linsang, to my experience, are often herbal. Tobacco can be, not that common, but can be for sure. But what surprised me is actually the strength, the body of this tea, that is so intensely harmonious in a way. It's very strong and very harmonious, and usually you don't find that strength in Linsang tea. So for this, I would say it's a little bit of an exception, but the world of tea is so wide. And Linsang itself is so large that you cannot really tell. So all in all, I'm very happy with the tea. Thank you to Joe for selecting this one. For you, those of you that have watched our videos, you know that we have this series of pu'er that are now bringing one after the other online, that were all selected by Joe. Joe is an expert in pu'er. He has been drinking pu'er for very long, so an expert here in Europe, a good friend of mine, and I got him involved to help me in the selection process. And yeah, so Joe, very good choice. Thank you for that. I would have definitely chose this tea myself as well. And for the other of you, I hope, yes, you have enjoyed that as well, and that you will enjoy this tea. Please write me in the description below if you're going to taste this tea, if it is something that you like, and if you find the taste profile that I also tasting, or you notice something different in it. I would be really interested, because a lot of time I find myself just describing the tea on my own, Dimitri describing the tea on his own, but we want to see if our description and our taste really match also yours. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up, and go ahead, subscribe our channel if you haven't done it so, and more tea videos like these will come your way very soon. Thanks a lot, and see you next time. Bye guys.